There are things the body can handle: shrapnel, blood, the smell of gunpowder. The pain of war, as cruel as it may be, is predictable. But nothing prepares a man for the betrayal of the one he loves most. Can you imagine surviving hell, only to discover that the real shot came from the person who slept next to you? It may sound extreme, but most of the deepest real-life stories don't happen on the battlefield. They happen at home. Maybe you've trusted the wrong person. A ghost just like that? She traded a hero for a secret, and he was left behind, not just with physical scars, but a broken foundation of everything they had built. Sad love stories like this don't always scream. Sometimes they whisper. And the whisper is enough to shatter a man. Maybe you think infidelity in marriage only happens to careless people. But what if I told you that even when you do everything right, one day, a buddy came by with a face full of pity and words he didn't want to hear. His mind was a loop of everything she used to say, now spoiled. It wasn't just about a failed marriage. It was about realizing the love he thought he had was a performance. And when a love story becomes a lie, the heartbreak cuts deep. Not just in the heart, but in the soul. And yet, it was in that same pain that something powerful began to grow. She's living with him, he said. The house felt different, empty, echoing. He walked into the kitchen, and there she was. Not his wife. His mother cried, alone hunched near the sink, trying to muffle her sobs so he wouldn't hear. But he did. Calls him my love, with the same words she used on you. That hit differently. It wasn't about jealousy. It was humiliation. Intimacy recycled like an old script, shared with another man, while he was still trying to walk again. And the ending, oh, that no one saw coming. But before I tell you how it all ends, you need to understand why some words hurt more than any bullet. And maybe, just maybe, you'll see more of yourself in this story than you'd like to admit. Some people still stab you with a smile. This isn't just another sad story. This wasn't pain from a wound, it was betrayal. The woman he swore loyalty to, the one who stood proud at his military graduation, now looked at him like a burden. Real-life family stories often don't bleed on the outside. They bleed in silence, behind hospital curtains, in the quiet moments where love should live. It's a mirror, a warning, and in the end, it might be the wake-up call. You need to get out of a toxic relationship before it breaks you too. Because what this woman said in the hospital, it wasn't just cruel, it was the trigger that changed everything. There are wounds you expect in war. He knew that. He took 2 bullets to the chest serving his country. While he was fighting for his life, she was selling his motorcycle, the one he polished every Sunday like a ritual. She emptied their joint bank account, all of it, gone. And when the nurse finally gave him back his phone, the bank had already called twice, like he was off on vacation and not sedated and stitched up. That's when the real war began. Not overseas, but in his own home. Experienced soldier, trained for chaos, trained for loss, but nothing, not even combat, prepared him for the coldness in her voice when she leaned over his hospital bed and said, "You should have died out there." That sentence, that moment, hit harder than any explosion he'd ever survived. And it got worse. She didn't even try to hide it. She left town with another man, a stranger. But it didn't stop there. He stared at the wall for hours that day. When he finally came home, walking slowly, with bandages under his shirt and disappointment in his eyes, he wasn't expecting a warm welcome. She wasn't crying for his injuries. She was crying for everything he lost. She held him like he was still a little boy and whispered, "I always knew she didn't really love you." And in that moment, he realized that sometimes. But then he read the first one. It was like the writer had lived his pain. The war, the betrayal, the silence, that she watched him leave, watched him break, watched him rebuild. And that writing was the only way she knew how to get close without interrupting his healing. A love that waited, where kids used to run around, where Xuan sat quietly reading while he played soccer, where life was simple. And when the day came, he sat there early, hands sweating, heart pounding, waiting. That grew, no makeup, no words, just a soft smile and tears that matched his. They didn't talk much, they didn't need to, because sometimes, after everything, betrayal, separation, silence, all that's left is presence. Real presence. Not loud, not dramatic, just enough that believed. And suddenly, he realized, not every tragic story ends in tragedy. Some are just detours. The guilt, and that's the strange thing about stories of separation and reconnection. Sometimes strangers see us clearer than those who claim to love us. And with every envelope he opened, his pieces started coming back together. You are not alone. Simple words, but they struck deeper than any therapy session ever could. The next one said, "There's still hope." And soon, those letters became the only reason he left bed each day. They didn't just comfort him, they lit a fire in him, one small spark at a time. He sat at the table, pen in hand, and wrote back, "Family secrets are not whispers from the past. They re-warnings we ignore because love blinds us. But a mother's hug has the power to hold broken pieces together, even when you don't know what to do next." Then came the letters. Folded, handwritten, no sender name. At first, he thought it was junk. Each letter knew him too well. He found himself again, in ink, in kindness, in mystery. And then came the seventh letter. This one was different, personal, raw. It began with, "I've known you since before the war." That's when he froze. The handwriting was the same, but the voice behind it was no longer a stranger. It was her, the girl from years ago, the quiet one who used to sit 2 desks behind him in school, the one who always listened, but never spoke, the one he forgot, but who never forgot him. She said she had loved him in silence. He didn't sleep that night. "I want to see you," he said, and he picked the place where it all began. The bench in the park near their old neighborhood. She arrived slowly, and somehow, in that stillness, a new story began. There are stories that entertain us, and then there are stories that confront us. This one does both. We often imagine them returning to applause, gratitude, perhaps even a parade. But what happens when they come back to silence? Or worse, betrayal. Maybe not a cheating spouse, maybe not stolen money or abandoned dreams. But we've all had our version of someone saying, "I don't love you anymore," even if the words were never spoken. It may not come when we expect. It may not wear armor or carry flowers, but it will sit beside us, in silence if needed, and say with presence what words cannot. You're not alone. It's the kind of wound that changes your reflection in the mirror. It makes you question everything. Your worth, your choices, even your past. This story reminds us that pain doesn't always come in the form of bullets. Sometimes it comes through words, through absence, through people we trusted the most. It is one of those painful real-life relationship stories where the wound is emotional. The girl who once loved him silently didn't tried to take up space when he was broken. She didn't rush to be the solution. It's not about erasing the past. It's about embracing it, understanding that every scar, every failure, every tear was part of the journey towards something real, something honest, something whole. She just offered presence, and that's what we all long for. In the end, someone who sees us without trying to fix us. Someone who chooses us, even when we feel unworthy of being chosen. Yet it bleeds just as deeply. On the surface, it asks about a soldier who returns from war only to face a different kind of battlefield at home. But beneath that, it asks about something far more universal. This story, like many real-life family dramas, isn't just about betrayal. It's about resilience, about the quiet strength it takes to get out of bed when your world has collapsed, about holding on to the thread of hope when you've got nothing left. And sometimes, that hope arrives in a letter. Handwritten, anonymous, honest, the quiet war that so many of us fight behind closed doors. The war of the heart. When someone gives their life to protect others, we've all experienced some form of broken trust. But there's beauty in the fall. If you know where to look, there's a powerful message here about timing. The idea of meeting again at the park, the place where it all began, is symbolic of life coming full circle. What this story teaches us is that even in our darkest seasons, love, the quiet, patient kind, is still out there. And that is enough to begin again.